How many people in this room are instructors or faculty members? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. So of the people who raised their hand, how do you see maybe coaching helping in the work you do with students? How many of you are also advisors? Raise your hand. Yeah, that's what we thought. Yeah. So do you see any unique opportunities for coaching as a role as an instructor faculty role?
I think with like an instructor, like it's kind of hard because I mean you're like you're with them like in a class setting, so I mean it's kind of hard to like. I mean sometimes like you'll have them stop by like for like homework help or like assignment help, but I mean I feel like it's a little harder to like emphasize more like the instructor side of it than like the advising. Like advising side, I definitely like see it, but a lot of times like for me like it's hard. Like I try to like reach out to my like advisees and say like, hey, like I'm here like this semester, like my door's always open, but like they don't like necessarily like they only come to like, okay, I need to enroll in for classes next semester.
So it's more focused on enrollment. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I struggle.
All right. Anyone else want to add to that? Would you agree that it makes it a little harder when you're in that full faculty? Well, I think too, office hours are a nice opportunity if they come. Being able to ask a coaching question or two, I think is good. Yeah. All right, so we had a chance to really focus on, I would say, use the right side of our brains, practicing coaching. Now we're going to engage the other side of our brains. We're going to do a little more of an academic exercise. So Casey and I are going to, actually Casey's going to do this because you saw how well I do in my math. Not my strong suit. But we're going to count you off into groups, and then I want you to pull out your reflection packet, and we're going to keep moving forward. And this is going to be the persistence themes group activity. Each of you will be placed into a group, and you'll have an opportunity to discuss these different questions. Okay? So, again, discussing what's happening with your students in this area. What are some questions you could ask students in this around this theme, this topic? What are some campus community resources? This is a chance to share ideas. Maybe there are so many different campuses represented. A great way to say, hey, this is what we're doing with students in this area, how we're supporting them. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe we could think about doing that on our campus. So it's just kind of a sharing out time. And then, this is the ultimate challenge. I want you to search the web for one research article or statistic or some type of news, some type of maybe Inside Higher Ed, a blog, something that relates to the theme that you've been assigned to. And then we're going to share out. You're going to share out with the group. So there needs to be, you need to appoint someone who's going to be the sharer. And then oftentimes in these workshops, we have the sharer actually type up what they found and send it, and then coordinate that and send it out to the group, which can be super helpful. So it's up to you. But I would like to definitely have someone who's tracking your answers and who is willing to stand up and share out with the group. Okay? All right. So Casey,
Okay.
Take it away.
So this is part of the program where you're going to move again, right? So get excited. All right, so we're gonna number off 1 to 8, okay? And then this is going to be table number 1, all right? So you are number
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
okay? Nobody's going to move till we're done. This is table 2, all right? Number off.
1, 2, 3. Oh, 4.
Okay, perfect. That's table 2. This is table 3. Number off.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Tell her she's 6. Okay, perfect. All right, this is table number 4. All right. 1.
1, 2,
3. And then she'll be 6. Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, we'll maybe add some more. This is table number 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
All right, great. This is the table number 6.
1, 2.
Great. This is table number 7, right? Yep, 7.
1.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, great. And then this is table 8, so all the 8s are going to come over here. All right, and then we will add a few people to this table as well that we might need. All right, so go to your designated table. No.
Region staff, but we've worked on institutions or at campuses. So we had motivation and achievement, and what we thought students struggle with, or what we observe, is avoidance, procrastination, easily distracted, finding excuses of why they can't get things done, sometimes disengagement and depression and some of those types of things. Our questions is try to ask them what is your why, and remind them, have them kind of remember why they actually went to college, what is holding you back, what does achieving your goal look like, what if you knew you couldn't fail, because we know that's possibly why a lot of people are unmotivated, because they're too afraid that they're going to not succeed, and what, that's the same thing, what is holding you back. We really like that.
We want to
We kind of struggled a little bit with number 3 because we feel like really depending on what is the reason they're lacking motivation depends the campus service that we would refer them to. If it is fear of failure, it could be tutoring. If they are having some depression, maybe there's some counseling. If they're really unsure of their major, we might do career counseling. So we feel like there's a lot of campus services that we could use. We just didn't know which ones to put down because it really kind of depended on how that conversation went.
Okay.
And then finally, there's an article called 5 Key Ingredients for Improving Student Motivation in the Research and Higher Education Journal. And those 5 key ingredients that I read from the abstract, so that's about as far as I got, is student, teacher, content, method/process, and environment.
One more time. Students.
Student, teacher, content, method/process, and environment.
Okay,
But I didn't
so
get
things
enough
that
information
can
to really explain.
positively affect students' motivation. Yeah, so I think sometimes we forget that there's a whole body of research that we can turn to when we're trying to come up with some ideas and ways to inform our own practices. And I think sometimes, I know I get caught in more of the advising, so I think it's great to branch out and look at some of these other things. All right, let's give them a round of applause. All right, group 7. We're just changing it up. It's Friday.
Okay, so we had.
Would you stand?
Okay, so we had the identity and inclusion, and so for number 1, what have we observed? And so just lack of involvement, in campus events, clubs, and organizations. A lot of students don't feel like they're included, they kind of feel they don't really belong in any organizations that we have. And then also some of us have multiple campuses, campus locations, and so with those they sometimes feel isolated from the main campus, and so feel like they kind of get left out of big events and that kind of stuff. And so for the powerful questions, how important is this to find a group that you relate to? How important is it for you? And then if you could start a group on your campus, what would it be and why? And then just kind of having them list the effective someone who is involved, what are they doing to be effective versus someone who's not effective in that area. And then just asking them that they know what is available on our campus, what organizations are out there. That way maybe they don't know there's a group, and so that way they can get involved. And then for number 3, just finding representatives on campus that you can send students to. That way if they're dealing with a certain or like if you have like a black student who like you might not necessarily like relate to, you can find someone on campus that then kind of relate to that way. Like you can find the kind of help them like feel like included and kind of help them with that situation. And then also just having the community like get involved on campus and like supporting students. And so like a lot of like our town, like we host like a big like block like Main Street like block party thing every month. And so like they get like campus organizations involved. And so just kind of like getting the community involved. And so like one of the like big like things right now is like the LGBTQ. And so like some of the like with that is kind of like the Trevor Project, and just kind of like finding resources that they can kind of relate to, or the It Gets Better Project, and just kind of like finding resources for them to kind of where they can like get help.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Any statistic or any research?
We didn't quite make it that far.
Okay. Alright. Fair enough. Where is my next group?
We had competing responsibilities, and so we talked a lot about like especially athletes on campus being pulled in that direction for athletics as well as academics, students that have to work a lot or have families, and we were talking about a lot of times like work, or you get a paycheck at the end of the week, or you get a tangible reward for like winning or losing like a game. So those take priority sometimes because it's a much quicker kind of result than the academic side of it. So some of the questions for helping students would be like, can you list your priorities in order of importance? So helping them kind of prioritize them. What responsibilities can you spend less time on? So a lot of times students feel like they have all these responsibilities, but some of them they don't actually really need to do. So maybe they're working, but they don't need the money. They're fully funded in school. They're just doing it because they want to or they want extra money, but they're failing all their classes because they're working so much. So can you spend less time on any of the areas? We were talking about that a lot of it is really them knowing like what their responsibilities are, how to deal with them. So for the campus resources, doing like success coaching, counseling, or like the Call Sam resource that some of our campuses have to help them find childcare or things like that if they need. There was a few articles for like prioritizing and how to figure out your responsibilities, what you need to do. And I had gone to a poster presentation from Career Services talking about the amount of hours worked versus how many credit hours, and that students that are taking 20 or less are much more successful in their school. So helping students with those kind of concrete, like this is the average time of working, this is the average thing, and these students are doing better, or like tutoring, like this, you're going to tutoring this much, and this is the average GPA. So using some of those statistics, like you could do it too. Anything else
Next group. Number 5, right?
Our group had support networks, and we just talked about some of the things observed when students struggle with this theme is they tend to lose focus or feel a sense of disconnection. They struggle balancing social life with, academics, not getting information through orientation, and what's needed to succeed. Identify powerful questions to help understand and support your students who are facing challenges with this topic would be making sure they are aware of the resources that are available to them, making sure they know what's out there, and putting them in touch with others that may be knowledgeable about the resources that are available, discovering what areas they may be lacking in. So finding out what, information they're needing would be helpful. That way you can put them in touch with the right people. List campus, community, and web sources available to provide support for students who are stressed in the area. We talked about the Academic Resource Center, and information that they can receive from that area in the college, making them understand that it's okay to ask questions and no questions are dumb questions. Reaching out to other students, faculty, and staff on campus to see if they can provide insight on things that were obstacles that they may have faced. And then we also did the search on the web about the news brief, and it was the importance of support. And I just wanted to go over a little bit about that. Spending time with friends or classmates help you effectively learn college materials. Research has shown that college students learn much more, if not the most, when they are connected with peers, instructors, and even more than that of learning from textbooks. Collaborating with faculty and staff is also important. Students-faculty interaction positively influences academic achievements, such as maintaining higher GPAs, obtaining degrees, graduating with honors, and enrolling in graduate professional schools.
Excellent.
It's that human connection, right?
Okay, I do the short straw, but I'm using Sarah's notes because they're so much better than mine. Okay, so what have you observed when students struggle with this theme? Pretty straightforward. Okay, we're seeing that a lot of times they work too much, or they ignore the problem and continue to rack up debt, or they don't buy books, or they don't have money for books, or there's some structural things we discussed and so forth, waiting on financial aid and so on. So there's a lot of different issues that apply here. And for number 2, powerful questions. What financial barriers can you identify that might contribute to your success as a student? Have you explored any options or other avenues to address some of your financial challenges? Open up discussion on financial aid, scholarships. Courtney from UCO was talking about, what do you call those advisors you have? Money coaches. Money coaches, thank you. Money coaches. And to help out there. Of course, that's not a question, but it's just a resource actually that is going to come into the next question, the next issue, which is campus, community, or web resources. For all of us, to some extent, financial aid is true, but that's where we have things like money coaches and other outside sources, such as for some schools, actually all the schools probably to some extent, tribal community scholarships, things of that nature. Work study came up. So these were some of the possible avenues to address that. And as far as the news issue, this is a very highly scientific and academic research came out in 2013. It's 2 years old, from Citigroup and 17 magazine, so you know it's affordable. In 2009, right about the time we had the economic collapse here in the United States, parents were paying an average of 37% of their students' tuition, and just 3 years later it was down to 27%, dropping 10% in less than 3 years. The average student, and this was actually, I was joking, this is actually a pretty extensive survey of high school students, community college students, private and state universities, and so forth, fairly large sample size. It said that the average, 80% of students were at that time working an average of 19 hours per week. So a pretty significant number there. And 10% of those, 10% of all students were working an average of 35 hours, not an average, were working at least 35 hours a week. So it means at least 10% of students were working full-time jobs effectively.
We had health and resiliency, and the things that we noticed about our students that struggle in this area, they miss class frequently, they don't participate in student activities, whether it's extracurricular on a sports team or even intramurals or any of the things that we offer on our campuses. Any minor obstacle can derail them for the entire semester. They practice poor self-care. They don't manage stress and anxiety very well. They have poor communication skills. They don't communicate with their professors when they're ill, or they don't take the doctor's note unless prodded to do so. And they don't create reliable support systems at the college away from mom and dad who have held their hands sometimes up to this point. The questions that we identified: what strategies can you use when you get sick? what gives you energy, what drains your energy, and what do you think healthy people do. And then some of the community and web resources that we have in campus, we have colleges that have a blessing box or food pantries, clothing closets on campus, campus counseling if it's a mental health issue, health clinic, fitness centers, encourage campus activities, whatever they're interested in, to become involved. Rose State has therapy dogs, and the dogs have their own offices, and I think that's pretty cool. Extra support during finals week, whether it be snacks, one school has massage chairs that come in, the masseuse comes in just to give them a 5-minute, just a little bit of relaxation, refocus. And then also be an example, so staff and faculty be more fit, get out, walk. And then make sure that the faculty knows about the resources so that they can also make sure that the students get where they need to be. Two different, one's an article and one's a movie. The article is Designing a University Around Wellbeing and Purpose, and it came from the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And then a movie called Resilience the Movie. It's a documentary about how trauma influences health and resiliency and about the science of hope.
Research articles, we've got movies, not busy this weekend.
Okay, we had major to career design, and we noticed that students who struggle with this are often students who they don't realize what the requirements are going into it. Say there's tests and things that they can't pass. They don't have clarity regarding jobs and major knowledge how to get there. And these are not my notes, I'm reading someone else's notes. They're not. They don't understand how they're in a degree and they don't like it. It doesn't go well, and they don't see how they can transfer the skills they got from the degree they're in to another degree or career. And so talked a lot about that. And we have undersighted students who are there because somebody else is paying, and so they don't really care what they study. They're just there because somebody else is paying for it. Some powerful questions we came up with are, what is it about this major or career that draws you to it? Or similarly, what are 3 things that can attract you to the field? How does this align with your personal values? Or if you look forward 10 years, what are you the most excited about coming 10 years? Again, looking at those values. And if you leave this major, what's the worst that will happen? Or if you leave this major, what's the best that will happen? Some services that we have, we talked about OSU's career consultants, and they look at advising and things like that. And OSU also has a list of, if you have this major, what are some jobs that you can get? OC has Day 6, which is the College and Career Center that has tests and things that you can take. And then OCNet has career assessment and budgeting tools, which is the website, OCNet. And then when we looked for a news article, we looked at some useful resources again, OC Department of Labor, Occupational Outlook, OK Career Guide, ONET, and then we found the statistic that 80% of students change their major. And so it's not that uncommon. You're not failing by changing your major. You're just readjusting and you're shifting.
All right. Last but not least. Who's the spokesperson? Should we just pick someone?
We had study systems, and what we observed that students struggle with their study habits, newfound freedom, immaturity, set their own schedule and boundaries, technology, especially with students coming back to college or having come to college for the first time, non-traditional students, time management, powerful questions. How do you spend your time? When you take time to study, what are your strategies? what is keeping you from reaching your goal? What study skills strategies did you utilize in high school, and how did those work for you? Campus services and online services, tutoring centers, success centers, coaching centers, counseling services, different workshops, things like that are going on. On the web, we found some different information from the Bureau of Labor. It said that students spend 2.76 hours a day on educational activities. That includes class and studying. And then 4.4 hours on leisure activities. That's pretty powerful information.
Oh my goodness, wow. All right, thank you. That was interesting, wasn't it? A lot of good insights, a lot of just the realities of what we're seeing and how thinking about ways to empower our students to take control of these areas and being that support for the student to do that, because it's just part of the job of being human, right? It's just working through these different things. All right, now, what if we told you we created a document that had these 8 themes with corresponding outcomes of where we'd like our students to be, with almost 300 coaching questions to work with students in these areas? Would you be happy about that? Yay! Because you all get a booklet with this information. Yes, yes. So this is
You get a
Yes. All right, these beautiful booklets, and thank you again to our wonderful state regents leaders to actually put this all together. And this was, again, a labor of love that we worked on in our project. This took some time. It was 2 years ago. We spent a long time kind of working on this. And we were very committed to making this a Creative Commons open source document that other institutions could use. Because as we've seen today, our students are sharing similar challenges, right? The number of institutions who are represented today and the number of challenges that our students have in common and that we had in common when we went through school. Yes. All right, so this is going to be your party gift. You're going to get one of these when you leave, so we'll make sure that happens. And now we want to switch our focus to moving the workshop to action. So the last part of this workshop is having you take a few minutes with that packet and starting to think about how could you bring coaching into your practice. It can be anywhere from one little tiny baby step to you want to create an entire program, but this is up to you, and we want you to actually start to draft this out. We're not going to have you stand up and share this. I mean, maybe if a few people want to share their action steps, that'd be great. But for right now, just to give you a couple of minutes to do that, because we don't want all this great learning and all the ways that you contributed today to fall off. Let's just move it into action.
Yeah. How would I implement it?
Friday at the beginning of November. So we know where all the mental space is. But is there anything that you kind of, anybody want to share, any particular action that you kind of thought through today that you thought, you know what, I might try to go back and do this? Anybody? No action. This has been a great coach. Oh, thanks, Sophia, my fellow university.
Yeah, I worked out an implementation timeline where I don't try to start off doing it all at once, but
Great.
practice between now and the end of the semester. Add a bit more of it during the spring semester, and then the new students I start working with in May have it by then that I full-fledged use this model.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
The other half of our staff is going to one at OSU Tulsa.
Oh,
So it'll
awesome.
be, when they get back, they'll
Yep.
probably come around the table and see, how do we do this?
Okay, so like specifically, you like schedule a meeting when they're done. Do you know when they're going?
They're going on the 14th.
Of November? Great, so then after November 14th, you can put that on your calendar to meet with them. Love it. Great, that's perfect. Other things? Anybody else? Yeah.
I'm from student success, but I would like to offer workshops for faculty advisors through a faculty advisement system, where they can learn some of these tools and give them some ideas. Unfortunately, like most of you in the room, there's no money and people are overworked already, but we'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, no, that's great, and hopefully too, you know, you can see how a lot of this can be done, even in your current space.
Takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, whatever that current space looks like right now, that you can still do some stuff. Very good. Okay, what I would love to do now, as we kind of wrap up, love to just maybe at your table, just talk real briefly for maybe just 2 minutes about one takeaway. Just one takeaway from today that you feel has maybe stood out to you the most, right? Talk about it at your table just for a couple minutes, share with each other as colleagues what that one takeaway is, and then I'll bring you back here and we can kind of share table to table a few of the takeaways. Sound good? Okay, awesome. Go for it. Kind of wrap up here. Just love to hear a few takeaways. It'd be awesome if maybe we just get one takeaway from each table. It'd be cool. Maybe this table. You guys have great laughs.
Okay, well, I will start. I said that I do a lot of this. I've always done a lot of coaching as an advisor anyway, just never thought of it in that particular fashion.
Awesome.
But the one takeaway I would take away from today is there's a lot of this that I could incorporate into a freshman orientation class.
Oh, nice.
Since we went from 8 to 16 weeks, thank you, Sean. I got to figure out something else to do that 8 weeks anyway. But no, there's a lot of this that I would love to bring into a freshman orientation class.
Yeah, that's great. I teach one of those, a few colleagues teach one of those,
Right.
and we do the exact same thing. We take this coaching and kind of put it in that
Right.
classroom, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So, great takeaway. How about our table back here in the corner? Anybody want to share a takeaway?
So I was kind of like Vincent said that it feels like a lot of us already do some of these things,
Great.
but as we get busy or calendars get filled, sometimes it's easy to slip back into making it more like transactional.
Okay.
So just taking the time or being more intentional about using and incorporating this into it. And you demonstrated throughout the day, even as people have made comments, asked questions, how easy it is to actually use this in everyday interaction.
Great, love it. No, that's great. Yeah, sometimes like we all know, like he's saying, you know this. A lot of this you know this. But it's that refresher button that is so key. Right? Just that ability to refresh as colleagues. So love that. Great. This is it. Anybody take away?
Our favorite thing was that wheel.
Oh, the wheel light.
I really like it, and I want to put that in my first year. Kind of like look what you did, kind of resolution type thing going to next year. But I like the physical, like you can see it, the visualization of it. Without asking all of the questions, they kind of see what areas are lacking and what they need to work on and what they're proud of. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great. I'm glad that you like that. I agree. It does make it nice to have this visual representation of what we're trying to accomplish. So great. There's a lot of different cool tools. All right, how about this table up here? I love the looks.
So I was just talking about how like the questions and how they allow the student to do most of the talking instead of like the advisor to do a lot of the talking. So I think that for me, the takeaway that I have is to ask more like powerful, open-ended questions that allows them to like come to their own realization about their plan that they're making, so they take ownership.
Great. No, very good. Yeah, and it feels so nice, when you do that. I remember I felt like I did a lot of the heavy lifting the first few years, and when you get to kind of help empower them to do the lifting, do that, it's great. What about this table?
We talked a lot about how we liked the reminder to listen. We talked about that, just listen actively, and we really enjoyed the interactive when you had us do coaching each other. It was good to just remember a lot of us do a lot of that already, but to have that, just the practice that was good. So I really enjoyed that, and also remembering that the student is the expert in their own life, and so you're just pulling information out of that expert.
this table right back here? Can't do Kimberly, she already did the volunteer.
She used my notes.
Oh,
Ditto.
Love it. Okay, good, we got the ditto table, we'll take it. That's good. How about, who did this table?
We did, we appreciated the ion method in
Okay.
this sheet here.
Okay,
It
yeah.
said it was gonna reside under my keyboard at my desk.
Yeah.
So, pull it out.
That's great, yeah. I mean, we still do coaching a lot, and I still have a model right there in front of me, and yeah, it's just great, just where you know where you're at in your mind a little bit, is helpful. All right, in the back table. Yeah, what do you? Yeah, you can say it. It's okay. You can say what.
Yeah, somebody.
What they take? What stood out to you?
Just that I need to stop solving everybody's problems and
Okay.
let them do some open-ended questions and let them.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great one to end on, because that's what we want for all of you all, and I mean, I think why we're all in this, we're all together. I mean, this is all of us in this together. We might be at a lot of different other institutions, but we're all in this together. And I think when we all can kind of share together and come to spaces like this, it's really empowering to remind us, like, okay, like, yeah, there's other people dealing with the same stuff. And we can all kind of share in kind of a locked arm way of just trying to get better ourselves to ultimately serve students. And that's why we're all, hopefully that's a big part of your why that we started the day with. And we're really thankful, I know Kathleen and I are very thankful just to get to meet a lot of you all and have the opportunity to be here today.
Yeah, and I know that when you signed up for this workshop, you didn't know that we'd be working you this hard, right?
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, but I also know that sometimes when we do have more interaction, that it makes time go a little faster and we learn a lot as well. And I hope I was really excited by just the turnout, your interest in this topic, the number of institutions represented, again, the commonalities we all share as educators, the struggles, and that we are in this for the long haul. We know this, that we've got educators' hearts. We want our students to succeed. And just to remind you that the work you're doing is so important. And you even have one question can help that student even an inch closer to the finish line, then we are all doing our jobs. So I just want to say thank you.